Hello, friends. Welcome back to Hello, Friends for Season 2 of Mr. Robot in Review. My name is Kyle. I am your host. As always, I just finished watching the Season 2 opener. But this is officially Hello, Friends episode 11, but Season 2, episode 1 of the second season. So thank you for joining me. If you have not seen this before, I'm going to review Mr. Robot. Each and every episode. This is now 11 episodes in, so we got a few more to go since there are 46 episodes in the series. But basically, I'm going to recap it, give it a score, give it my White Rose Award, which is my favorite actor or actress that stood out through that episode. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to go right into it here. And I know I said that every episode, and we never actually go right into it, but not going to cut that out, so there's a little fun behind the scenes, little tidbit there for you. But again, thank you for joining me for Season 2. I was thinking about getting a new shirt, but this shirt I feel like is just so iconic and it just fits in the Mr. Robot hat, and it's just a great combo. So this episode is going to be titled Hello Again, because not only hello again to you guys, hello again to Elliot, Mr. Robot, the whole cast and crew. Season 2 kicks off here. I'm only watching this a week, not even a week after, since I put it up the last episode late. But obviously when this aired in real time, myself included, I had to wait a significant amount of time between seasons. So this is going to be kind of a new kickoff for Season 2. And Season 2, as we'll find out, is a whole different vibe than Season 1. So in a good way. So here we go. Okay, so Season 2, Episode 1, Mr. Robot kicks off, and we get a Part 1. And this is already different than Season 1, and I was like, let's go. I know a lot of people think Season 2 was kind of like the low point, and I wasn't crazy about Season 2 the first time I watched it, but I am super excited now, and now that I get to watch it with like a closer eye, I am really excited, and we'll kind of see how I feel about this episode as the show goes on. So we get a Part 1 here, almost like a play, and we actually get Tyrell Wellick right off the bat. And if we remember at the end of Season 1, Elliot was looking for Tyrell Wellick. He wakes up in Tyrell's SUV. He's like, where's Tyrell? Where's Tyrell? Well, Sam Esmail tells us right off the bat Tyrell Wellick is chilling with an anonymous mask. So this one right here. So, hey, where's Tyrell Wellick? Well, we found him, sort of. And Tyrell Wellick takes off the mask, and he says, why this mask? And he goes, it's a bit silly, isn't it? And this is when Tyrell actually gets a call. And this, I think, is regarding the honeypot, because he says, yes, I'm aware Mr. Goddard requested this, but it needs to be removed this Monday. And so talking about taking the honeypot out when they're doing the hack. Elliot is sitting there with Tyrell. They're in the F Society arcade. He's at the computer, and then he's kind of staring at it. Tyrell's like, what's going on? What's the problem? And Tyrell says, it's almost as if something's come alive. And that's when Elliot gets up, and he reaches into the popcorn machine where he stored the gun earlier, or last season, I should say. And then we cut to a young Elliot who falls out of a window and crashes on the ground, and he's knocked out cold. And you hear like his parents running over, and they say, son, like, wake up, speak to me. It's a scary scene, but this is the scene we've talked about in the first season, where we thought initially Elliot was pushed by his dad, and then Mr. Christian Slater, as Mr. Robot, tells him, no, you weren't pushed, you jumped. And this is kind of that part where he jumps backwards out. Eventually, young Elliot goes to the doctors. He didn't suffer any brain damage or anything like that. Surprisingly, but he did break his forearm, so the doctor says like he's gonna be okay. He just, we need to repair his forearm. And the parents are like, how much is that gonna cost? And the doctor's like, excuse me, your son's forearm is broken. And they're like, the dad's like, no, we'll take care of it. And then the wife is like, or the mom is like, you just lost your job. So this is right after Elliot's dad apparently lost his job at E-Corp. So it's a cool little flashback bit to what's going on in Elliot's life and kind of all the craziness that's happening there. But the actor who plays young Elliot is really good here, because he's kind of staring off in the distance like Elliot does as an adult. And the doctor's like, you know what, let me just talk to young Elliot on my own, if you guys don't mind just stepping out of the room. So the parents step out, And the doctor starts telling him, like, you took a bit of a nasty spill, Elliot, but you should be okay. You're going to live a long life. And then the music, it slowly pans over, and the music cuts to Lupe Fiasco's Daydreamin', which is a slap. I love this song. I've heard the song when it came out, and it just fits perfectly across this whole sequence here. We cut to a full-grown Elliot in bed, almost a little bit similar. He's not wearing a shirt, almost similar to when he was doing the had the withdrawals in season 1. But he wakes out of bed, and he comes up out of bed, and right as he hits the camera, we get the Mr. Robot title screen. And then the bass drops, and it's just like, man, I just put in my notes, like, this fucking show, man. This show is so good. And just the way the cinematography and the music and how it all comes together in the different sequences. And I was just like, let's go. Season 2 is here, and I'm all for it. So Elliot is talking to us while he's neatly making his bed here. He says, today started just like yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that, and every day before that. And he says, a loop, my perfectly constructed loop. We get a shot of Barry O, who's back, Barack Obama, for all you Key and Peele fans out there. And he mentions Tyrell Wellick. So they actually got Barack Obama to record some dialogue here when he was the president. And he says, these attacks, we're looking to stop Tyrell Wellick. And I was like, oh, it's really cool that they got him to record that line to add to the realism and really make the world feel believable. But Elliot says to us, 8 a.m., my daily program begins by having breakfast with my friend Leon. Interesting that he calls it a daily program here. And I'm like, what up, Leon? Played by Joey Badass. He does a great job in this role throughout the series. He says he just discovered Seinfeld, and he says it's really fucking with him. And he's like, it's really fucking with me, man. And there's just a great recurring bit where he's talking about all the different Seinfeld episodes where he's like, man, one time they just get caught in a garage. He's like, that's not even an episode, man. Seinfeld is amazing. So I was a big fan of that. Elliot says 10 a.m. I help out around the house where he's doing the dishes. We don't know whose house this is or what's going on there. It's like an introduced new house that's kind of introduced. The lighting is all different in season 2. It's darker and more mysterious, and not that season 1 wasn't mysterious, but it just has a much different feel than season 1 does. He says 12 p.m. I have lunch with Leon, where he talks more about Seinfeld. 2 p.m. they go to the basketball game. He says, I still don't understand why people like sports so much. And I was like, ouch, dude. I freaking love sports. I can't really tell you why either. I guess it's because we all share a common bond and just the competitive juices in us that get going. But I'm a huge sports nut and can't wait for the Celtics to come back in a couple weeks now. So, but yeah, I've known people who don't like sports, and it's always weird to me. And I guess it's just their thing, but so many people like sports that it's always strange to me when you find an outlier that doesn't. I'm like, I just can't understand that, but that's kind of what Elliot is on the other side of here. He says they get so emotional over the weirdest things, which true we do. But he says, I do see the beauty in the rule, the invisible code of chaos hiding behind the menacing face of order. Then he says 4:30 p.m., cleaning up around the house again. And then 6 p.m. he goes to dinner with Leon, and he says, if you couldn't tell, I spend all my meals with Leon. And then that's when we get the line from Joey Badass as Leon, where he says, the human condition is a straight-up tragedy, cuz, which is kind of true. Elliot then goes to a church group here, and then we find out Elliot's been keeping a journal. And he said, this is the only way to keep my program running the way it's supposed to. Then we have a brief cut back to Elliot and Krista's office. And Krista's like, Elliot, I agreed to come back and see you, but only if you're going to be more open with me. You need to tell me what's going on here. Krista asked Elliot if he misses his old life. Elliot says, no, I can't trust myself. And then he says, well, it's not that I don't trust myself. He goes, I don't trust him. And then Elliot says to us, hello again. And he goes, yes, I'm talking to you this time. Which is, again, the imaginary, us, the audience, the imaginary friend or the imaginary voice that Elliot made up at the beginning of the show to kind of deal with all his mental problems here. But he says, I'm not ready to trust you yet. He's like, I'm not going to be telling you all the secrets that I did last season that didn't work out too well. So he's like, I bet you want to know what I told Krista. He's like, oh, I can't. He's like, this relationship is going to take time. And that's when he gets home and Mr. Robot shows up. And he's like cutting an apple. And he says, Mr. Robot says, are you still talking to your friend? He's like, I thought we were done with all that. And Elliot starts journaling that Mr. Robot's mad. And Mr. Robot's like, we can't stay here. He goes, our revolution needs a leader. And he says, you think this is going to get rid of me? And he picks up the journal and he throws the journal. And Elliot's just kind of standing there, and Mr. Robot's almost being a bully, but he's being tough when he needs to be. So Mr. Robot throws the journal and he says, this control you think you have? He goes, it's an illusion. And he points a gun at Elliot. And Elliot says, tell me where Tyrell is. Mr. Robot says, I can't do that. And that's when Elliot says, then go. And he goes to say, go F yourself. And then boom, Mr. Robot actually shoots Elliot in the head. And this is like a few minutes into the season 2 opener, and you're like, dude, what's happening here? But as we know, kind of now, anything can happen in this world of Mr. Robot, and a lot of things do happen, and you don't know what to believe or what's real and what's not real. So he shoots Elliot in the head, and then Elliot slowly rises like a zombie, and then he's just got like a bullet wound in his head. And he says, are you done? And then Elliot goes over and journals in there, and he says, he shot me in the head again. So this has happened more than once. And in my notes here I put, wow, season 2 is already wild. And again, this is only my second time watching through, all the way through. So there's parts of it I remember really well, and there's parts of it where I like a whole lot of little things that I did not remember, and I'm like, damn, this is a way different tone than season 1. So Elliot's journaling, he didn't freak out like last time. He's like, I stayed calm. And then Elliot then journals, control is an illusion. Right here, control is an illusion. And there's a piece of blood that drips down, and that's kind of like, the recurring theme throughout the whole show. And this is the first time we really get like that in writing, control is an illusion. So Darlene and a couple of her buddies, I don't know if these people are part of F Society or just like people she's running with, but they cut off the balls of the bull in New York. Not sure exactly what part of this is, but I think this like signifies the market for being a bull market, and they cut the balls off there. And then we cut to Smart Home 2020. I think the thing I'm thinking of is Smart House, like that Disney Channel movie. This is Smart House 2020 because this woman has everything in her house controlled by like some sort of smart device, like electronic. And eventually she does get on the line with like a tech, and she says like, I brought the smart home package, but she's got like her music controlled by the smart home. She's got her temperature in her house controlled. She's got her video. She's got her phone. She's got her alarm system. Everything is controlled by the smart home, which is great until somebody can hack it, as we find out F Society does or Darlene does. And there's a really great sequence here where like her video comes down and starts playing, and then she's like, that's weird, and she like turns it off, and then like her alarm goes off, she disables the alarm, then her lights start flashing, then the music starts playing really loud, and then it all starts happening at once. She gets in the shower, the water gets like super hot, then she goes over to her hallway and it's super cold, it's like 53 degrees. She moves the temperature up to 75 degrees and then immediately slides back down to 53, and then she tries to move it again and does it again. And it's very clear now that like she has been hacked and she doesn't know what's going on. Her smart home is going crazy, and it's a really chaotic scene. It's like kind of a comedic bit too because it cuts outside and there's like lights flashing and stuff, and she calls tech and they're like, yeah, it's going to take a few days, like you need to, like, is there anywhere else you can go in the meantime, because the alarm is constantly going off. She can't live there, she can't sleep there, like she can't do anything. She's like, well, I have a place in Greenwich, but she's like, I don't expect to go out that far. And basically she's forced out right after she leaves. Darlene and the crew show up, and this is like their spot where they're going to be operating for a bit. And in my notes here I put F Society 1, this lady 0, because they just owned her. So we cut to Gideon coming to see Elliot at his home, and he says, there is no all safe. I had to furlough everything. Gideon reveals then that the FBI believes that he is behind the attack or the hack. There's a really cool back and forth here with Mr. Robot, who's standing in the corner, and I think I mentioned earlier, but this is where he's actually cutting the apple. And he's like, so when are you going to tell Gideon that you're just slowly descending into madness? He's like, how long are you going to keep this up for? And Gideon is like, what's going on, man? And Mr. Robot says, this is our infinite loop of insanity. So there's that theme again, the loop. And Gideon is like, you gotta help me out, man. And Elliot's like, I can't help you. And Gideon's like, okay, well then, like, I'm gonna go to the police and tell them what I know. And then that's when Mr. Robot says, now he's doing what all small animals do when they're scared. He's like, they try and act bigger and scarier. And then that's when Mr. Robot goes over to Gideon, and he's like standing behind him, and Elliot's like freaking out. He's like, no, don't do it. Gideon's like, don't do what? He's like, what are you talking about, dude? And Mr. Robot's like, if I slice his throat right here, is it going to be you doing it, or is it going to be me? And then Mr. Robot actually slices his throat. Elliot freaks out, but then we cut back to see that Mr. Robot is not there, or at least we can't see him at this moment. Gideon is fine, but he's like, Elliot's freaking out, and he's wondering what's going on there. Just so it shows you that Elliot is losing control, and he has no control, and he's losing his whole mind here. And Mr. Robot is trying to show him that. So Elliot journals. He runs to his room and he journals, I am in control, I am in control, I am in control, over and over and over. Almost to try and convince himself, but he's clearly not in control at this point. So Elliot says to us, that's the point of the routine, to stay as sane as possible until he's gone, and then I can be me again. And he's talking about getting rid of Mr. Robot, but Elliot bandages up his head, and then he's rocking these bandages. Elliot says, how do I take off a mask when it stops becoming a mask? And then he says, I know you don't trust me, but I need you to have hope for me. He says that to us. And I was like, we got to have hope for Elliot. And again, Elliot is this weird character, this beautifully played character by Rami, because he is so broken and so mentally sick and shattered, and but you root for him because not only because of Rami's acting, but just because you feel bad for Elliot and you want him to. Mental health is a real issue, and anyone who struggles with it will know that. But he is just so broken on the inside that Mr. Robot is trying to help him get out of his funk and trying to save him. And again, Rami is such a likable actor that no matter what Elliot does, even though he's socially awkward and he's having all these struggles, you really feel for him and you are rooting for Elliot. So when Elliot says, have hope for me, you're like, I will have hope for you, Elliot. I hope it all works out for you. And I guess we'll find out. We get this montage of Darlene crying, and then there's a bunch of dudes celebrating with the Bulls balls and taking pictures, selfieing with it. And Darlene's like, you better knock this shit off. And Elliot's like, give me your phone. And he's like, the guy who's taking the picture, she's up on the balcony. And he's like, I haven't even posted anything. She's like, give me your phone. And he throws it up, and then she just smashes it. She steps on it 12 times with her heels, just wrecks the phone. The music is very somber here, and I put season 2 such a different vibe than season 1, and I love it. And she says, Susan Jacobs. She goes, this is the woman we're dealing with, and finds out Susan Jacobs is the woman who's with the smart house that they're in. Darlene reveals that she is the general counsel at E-Corp. She's like, you don't want to know what they call her? Madam Executioner. And that is one of the most badass names in any show. And she will be known as Madam Executioner from here on out. So she may be Susan Jacobs. No, Madam Executioner coming your way. Darlene says she can kill any lawsuit filed against E-Corp. That's why they call her Madam Executioner. And she says it's time to stand up. So Darlene and Mobley have a conversation after, and Mobley's like, have you seen Elliot? She's like, that's not important right now. She says, we didn't finish them off. It feels like we're still losing. She's like, we need to let the people in the world who support us know we meant what we said about changing the world. So then we cut to the Bank of or the Bank of E-Corp, where there's a teller telling this woman, we can't verify that you've made any of these payments on your home. This woman says, this is ridiculous. She says, I've been responsible for the last 20 years in paying off my home. She goes, where's your accountability? She goes, if the tables were turned, you would have kicked me out of my own house. She's like, I have all the billing statements here. And she's like, we don't know how to verify paper records yet. She's like, everything is gone, which is what the hack did, which is crazy. And I was like, damn, this hits home hard, no pun intended. Because again, it's just for me, my student loans, I've made a bunch of payments to my student loans. If they were to just wipe that information out and say, we don't have any record of you paying any of these, all of my records are electronic. And so I just I open my app and I say, this is my balance I have left, this is my payment, I make the payment through the app. If some, like a F Society hack were to happen to me and they said, no, we don't know what you owe, you just have to owe the whole balance again, I would be pissed. And I would be like, this is crazy. But I think a lot of people are like me where I don't keep paper records. So like, I mean, in this woman's case, she might not even be able to be helped with the paper records. But like that would be one way to verify eventually. But I don't have something like that. I pay digitally and I unfortunately trust the system and I just rely that everything digital will take care of itself. And I'm like, nope, this is the balance I owe. And when that's done, we're square. But yeah, it's scary to think. And it's really, really cool bit here. There's really good acting. And this woman who I think that's her only scene probably in the whole series. She does a really good job. Really realistic actress. And I really like that scene. And that's when we get F Society striking again. So then we get Philip Price here. He's meeting with Scott Knowles and Madam Executioner. They're talking about the attack here, the second attack, where they say, okay, so what do they want? And they say $5.9 million to be delivered tonight to the park. She goes, the whole system gets bricked. And Philip Price is like, well, what's the other demand that they're coming up with? And she says, you must send one of your chief officers and no one else. They're like, this must be a joke. Scott's like, we can't negotiate with these terrorists. And eventually, Scott's like, you know what? He's like, fuck it. He's like, I'll go. He's like, I'm chief technology. He's like, I count. In my notes here, I'm just like, Scott's just like lost my wife. He's like, I'm living life on the edge, baby. Like, why not? And then we get an intermission. And I think watching this live, this was intermission, and there was like a lengthy commercial after this. So like, I'm watching the Blu-ray, so it just went right to part 2. But I'm pretty sure when I watched this live that it said intermission and there was like extra commercials. So like 8 or 9 minute commercials or whatever, or total commercial time before. So really, really cool. We get part 1, we get an intermission. And it just adds, this is about an hour and 22 minute episode. So this is longer than the normal 45 minute episode. But it just adds like a nice layer of feeling like a player, like an epic, like an act, where we get part 1, we get intermission, we get part 2. And that's where we pick right up at part 2 right after. So Scott is now in the park with 2 large duffel bags because how else are you going to carry a bunch of cash? And this is apparently like a heist movie now. But he stares down a dude with a dog. He's like really nervous and like looking around because he doesn't know who he's going to meet or what's going to happen. And there's like one dude just walking his dog and he's like staring at Scott and Scott stares back, and that's a good bit of comedic relief. And there's a dude with a bike, and Scott's got like security in his ear, and he's like, you see anyone yet? He's like, no. And then he's like, how about that guy? There's a guy with the bike. He's coming right at me. And the guy comes up and he's like, it's like a pizza delivery guy basically. And he's like, hey, are you from E-Corp? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, who are you? And he's like, just making a delivery. And he's like, sign here. Scott signs it. And he hands him a backpack. And Scott is like slowly looking at it. And then they're like, he like starts to slowly like open it. And they're like, sir, we should have our team check that. Like, you shouldn't be opening that. He's like, it's fine, don't worry. And he opens the bag, and then he takes out an anonymous mask. Said mask. Where there's like a canister taped to the mask, and there's some writing on the inside, so Scott reads it. We don't know what he's reading yet. Scott then gets a call on his cell phone, and he picks up his cell phone, and there's like a masked voice that says, you have 10 seconds to do what it says, or every system will be bricked. And they hang up. And Scott's like freaking out. He puts on the mask. He opens the Ziploc bags. He opens the duffel bags, and he dumps all the money out. And this is $5.9 million in cash, and it's a lot of money. And so now everyone's walking around there looking at him because he just dumped a whole bunch of money on the ground. And it turns out that's a can of gasoline. And he pours all the gasoline on the money. He takes the lighter and he flicks it and burns the money. And then that's when he takes the mask off. And it's shown to the camera. It says, wear me and burn the money. And I'm like, get wrecked, E-Corp. And also Phil Collins' Take Me Home is playing over this, and it's really great, really fits the whole mood here. So then we cut to Philip Price meeting with a congressman, I think, or he's in D.C. meeting with some sort of people. He's asking for more money or a loan. And they're like, we can't give you any more money. We can't go to the president with a bailout right now. And Michael Christopher, again, does an amazing job as Philip Price here. He tells a great story about like the Great Depression and the forefathers. And he says, that's what America is. He says, as long as the con works and people buy and sell whatever it is we want them to, that's the American dream. Or he says, that's what happens. He's like, we put stuff out, people buy it, there's normalcy. And he says, the American people are holding on to hope. He goes, if I resign, then any scrap of hope the public is already clinging to will be gone. And he's like, you know what, I got to get back to New York. He's like, and wipe your damn mouth. This guy's got like mustard or something on his mouth. And Philip Price just walks away. He's like, I'm not dealing with this. So then we get a quick scene where Joanna's got like a new boy toy here, like some new dude she's hooking up with, some like male model, Blue Steel. Joanna is now into like knife play, apparently. She still likes being tied up, and she's just still into kinky stuff, apparently. And now she likes to get slapped hard across the face, because this dude slaps her like 4 or 5 times, like really hard. And then we get Dom DiPiero, and I'm like, Dom is in season 2, the season 2 opener. Dom is a recurring character. I did not know she was introduced this early. I thought it was at least season 3, but that just shows you how much I remember from watching the first time. So yeah, we get Dom DiPiero, played by Grace Gummer. And Dom does an amazing job with this role here throughout the entire series. But she's like talking to the store clerk there. She gets a sandwich. Some guy's like, hurry up already. She's like, ugh, Jesus. She's like, Jesus H. She calls him like a dickhead, another language there. And she is like an FBI agent, or she's investigating like the 5/9 hack and everyone involved with it. But it turns out that she is actually meeting with Gideon, and he has, like Gideon said, he's going to go tell the police what's going on with the hack there. So Dom is working with Gideon, or talking to Gideon about what he knows. So then we cut back to Elliot to us. He says, when you look closely at the seams between order and chaos, he says, do you see the same things I see? He goes, the strain, the tears, the glimpses of truth hidden underneath. He goes, why do they fight so desperately to mask what they are? And then he says, or is it that they've become who they are when they put on the mask? And I really want to talk like Bane right there, but we're not going to do that, because that is a different review series. Elliot says, sometimes I wonder what you hide behind, my silent friend. And he's talking about us, the audience. And he goes, what mask do you wear? Elliot says, am I afraid? And he goes, nah, I'm different. And the ball gets stuck under the bleachers here because they're at the basketball game. Leon gets kind of pissed off, and he just like hucks the ball. And he's like, get your own ball, man. But Craig Robinson comes in to save the day. And this is the introduction of Craig Robinson's character as Ray. And he's got a good boy with him, his dog, which I did not write down the name. I think it's like Macy or something. But Craig is talking to, or Ray is talking to Elliot, and he says, you a dog person? Elliot says, used to have one. And he goes, oh, what happened? And he says, don't have her anymore. I'm like, classic Elliot, once again. And Ray says, oh, you're Elliot, right? Elliot kind of looks at him, and he's like, oh, I've seen you here before. Ray's like, yo, I could use some help with computers. Elliot's like, I don't know what you heard, man, but I don't do that anymore. And then Mr. Robot shows up in the background, and he says, come on, help him out, bring back that old feeling. Ray says, is it cool, man, if we continue talking? And Elliot says, no thanks. And Craig Robinson's looking at him, and he's like, damn. He's like, that's some cold, brutal shit. He says, I'm going to have to listen to Adele on repeat when I get home. Mr. Robot then says, how long are you going to keep us in this analog nightmare? And Elliot says to us, as long as it takes, and he walks away. And then the news shows that no one can find out where Tyrell Wellick is. Wellick's still on the loose. Cut back to Joanna and her male model friend. Joanna says, we're not to be seen together. Like her right-hand man comes up He's like, yo, we said 2 o'clock. It's now 2:15. What's going on? She's like, all right. She's like, she tells the guy to leave. She's like, we can't be seen together. Go ahead. Like, I'll call you when I need you or whatever. And this guy's like, because he's like, oh, you want to go to a bar? Like, we can hang out. And she's like, no, I'm just using you for sex. She's like, leave, and I don't want to be seen with you. Then we get Angela Moss, who is now the E Corp PR manager, and that was quick. The receptionist is like talking shit. She's like, hey, this girl has just been here for a little bit and she's already been promoted. She's like, what's going on? But Angela isn't playing any games in season 2 because she's getting like different TV crews to come in for interviews, and she's like playing hardball where she's talking on the phone, and then she just hangs up. And the lady, the receptionist, comes over. She's like, did you just hang up on Bloomberg? She's like, are you trying to get fired? And then she's like, can you just go? She's like, I'm going to tell Melinda or whatever their boss's name is. And she's like, good, then go get her. And the receptionist is like, she couldn't believe it. She goes to go get the boss. Bloomberg calls back. He's like, all right, but we want to talk about the Plouffe suicide too, the guy that killed himself in the end of season 1. She's like, no, that's respect for his family. She's like, don't talk about that. And they're like, fine, we'll do the deal. And she's like, all right, cool. She hangs up. And then right when the receptionist comes back with the boss to like see if she's trying to get her in trouble and snitch on her, Angela's like, yo, we got Bloomberg in like 10 minutes. We're good. And then she just walks away. She's like, gotta get a coffee or gotta get a memo before the meeting. So Joanna gets home and she arrives to a small box with a red ribbon on it. She opens it up. It's like a velvet box. But wait, there's an iPhone taped to the bottom of it. And that's all that scene is. We go to the next scene. Angela meets with the lawyer from season 1 that she worked with for Terry Colby's case. And Angela's like, look, I just want to let you know I like my job and I'm not quitting. And then I put in my notes here, Angela is becoming a slave to the corporate overlords and she's getting cocky. So she is transforming quickly from the girl that we saw at the beginning of the series. But Angela does say here that she believes E Corp sees her value where other people wouldn't. She then ends up sleeping with some random dude at the bar who just hits on her or just says, are you alone? And then she's kind of spiraling, but just transforming and becoming a different character, so it's cool to see her arc. She then, though, she wakes up in the middle of the night, gets out of bed, she turns on one of these motivational videos where it's like self-motivation, where it's like someone saying, I am exceptional, I am confident, I will follow my dreams no matter what. And she just like repeats it back. I'm like, those videos are weird. But we cut back to the court where nice-ass Craig Robinson is still chatting up Elliot, because Craig Robinson is super chatty and super nice and always, like, I feel like he just plays himself in this show, which is great. And this is where Elliot says, hey man, I don't mean to be an asshole, but like I said before, I'm all good. And Craig Robinson is like, oh, you serious? He's like, I thought you were making a joke there, but he's like, I thought we were on the same page after we spoke last night. And Elliot's like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. We didn't talk last night. And he's like, you really don't remember? And this is where Elliot actually sprints into the camera. It's a really cool shot. And he's kind of freaking out. Elliot says, that's what the control, the regimen, the journal, my perfectly constructed loop. He goes, that's what this whole thing has been about. And he's like freaking out, and he runs home. He's like frantically flipping through his journal. And he's like, oh, there's a gap in my consciousness that I can't account for. Like late last night after like 10:30 p.m. or something, he looks, there's just like an empty space. And he says, and this is why I'm different. He says, sometimes my mask takes over. And Mr. Robot shows up. And Elliot's like, why did you talk to him? He's like, why did you talk to Ray? And Mr. Robot says, because I'm going to make you realize. And Elliot's like, realize what? And he says, Mr. Robot says, because I'm going to make you realize that they see me. And this is like a big reveal. Like, other people can see Mr. Robot. And so the music is building here. Elliot goes to face the wall. And this is a really, really cool shot because it's almost like, it's like straight out of a horror film, where Elliot just turns around and he like smiles. And then he just starts laughing and he's just lost it. Like, Elliot just can't believe it. And he's just like, just that continuing spiral, that loss of control continues. And Mr. Robot is finally starting to like chip away at the cracks and show Elliot that he's not in control and that Mr. Robot is making progress there. So then he holds a gun up again to Elliot, and Elliot says, tell me where Tyrell is or just shoot me again. He's like a mover at this point. So Mr. Robot backs off because he realized that this is part of the endless loop and he doesn't want to keep just doing the same thing. Elliot's like, okay, cool, I gotta go. I'm late for my church group anyway. Then we cut to Gideon at the bar, and in my notes I just put here, fuck you, Brock, because there's a dude, Brock, who comes up here. He's like either gay or pretending to be gay, and he's hitting on Gideon. He calls Gideon a crisis actor and a patsy, before eventually just shoots him right in the neck. And Gideon is done for here. And I thought this was at the end of season 1, but it turns out they saved Gideon to season 2. At this point, Gideon has lost everything, so this is kind of where his character is going to end up. But it's still sad to see Gideon die. And I think Brock actually does say that he's like honest and sympathetic, but he says like, this is for our country. I didn't really understand that, but he's like, I don't know if he's just like a one-off or whatever, but he shoots Gideon. Gideon's done. He was kind of onto Elliot anyway, so that works out for Elliot's benefit and White Rose's benefit and Dark Army and all that. But still sad because Gideon's great. Joanna she's watching her baby. She's standing next there, and then right when she goes to take care of her child, she gets a call from an unknown number, and it goes to voicemail. Elliot, then we get a cut to Elliot's church group, and yes, I did see the articles. Looking back, it looks like Elliot is sitting next to the Mad Hatter. There's a dude in like a top hat, and he looks like he's kind of unhinged. Maybe this is Sam Esmail's version of the Mad Hatter, which would signify everything that Elliot's kind of experiencing is kind of all in his head. But whether that's true or whether it's just like a fun play on like a fun costume designer, I don't know. But it's kind of cool to think that might be the Mad Hatter or this world's version of the Mad Hatter. But bandaged Elliot, which is a really great look because he really does look like he's lost his mind. He's like falling asleep there, and he snaps asleep, and it opens or cuts to like hooded Elliot, or not hooded Elliot, I should say black hoodie Elliot without his hood, and he's holding a red phone. And Elliot's kind of wondering like how he got there, and then there's like it's just quiet, and he says like hello, and there's a voice on the other line that says it's really you, and Elliot says who is this, and the voice laughs and he says bonsoir Elliot. Okay, so for this one, I am going to give this one an 8.5. I really enjoyed this one because it's a big total shift, but I think there's a lot. This is very much like a season opener where it kind of starts hot and there's a couple of seeds being planted there, but it's mostly just set up for what's to come. So 8.5 I think is a fair score. It is like just a whole different vibe tonally. The shots are still pretty good, but it's just like the new characters with like Leon and Ray, and then we get like continued battle of Mr. Robot, and Elliot's brain is just spiraling out of control and we don't know what's going on, and we get a little bit of Tyrell, but now he's got a phone for Joanna. The big reveal at the end there, where he contacts Elliot, says bonsoir. It's always going to give me goosebumps when he says bonsoir Elliot, no matter when he says it. So yeah, I think this one was really good. It's hard because I really enjoyed this episode, so you might think like 8.5 is kind of low, but I just think that there's so many good episodes, so many great episodes in this series. It's going to be hard for me. I always feel like I'm going either too high or too low when I score these, so I didn't want to start season 2 too high. I didn't want to put it like low 9s because I don't think it's worthy of like a low 9, even though I did really enjoy it, because there are points where I was like, okay, this is almost filler, or everything in Mr. Robot is so methodically crafted, every line of dialogue and every shot, so there's no such thing as filler in Mr. Robot, but there were times where I was like, okay, and then when I was taking my notes, I was kind of just like, instead of hanging on to every dialogue line, I was like, okay, I get the gist of this scene, but I'm still paying attention to every little detail to see how it all adds up. But yeah, 8.5, I think there's a lot better to come in season 2 and beyond, but I think that's a fair score for the opener. Okay, and the White Rose Award, this one is easy. This is probably one of the easier White Roses I've had to do this series through 11 episodes. This one goes to Rami as Elliot Alderson. Just all about Elliot as the series is, but this one really focuses on him. Christian Slater was very good as Mr. Robot again, but he didn't have as much screen time. But the majority of time was with Elliot and just him talking to us again, the interaction, what he's seeing, just how he's handling all this, and Rami's acting between that scene where he turns around and it's like a horror movie. All wonderful, all just amazing stuff. So Rami, deservingly so, gets the White Rose here. And yeah, that's it. So that is the 11th episode of Hello Friends, the 11th episode of Mr. Robot, the first episode of season 2. So thank you for joining me for the second season here. I think we're just going to rock the shirt through the whole series. We'll see. Again, I wanted to change maybe a different shirt for every season, but the other ones I looked at just didn't match, and this Hello Friend it's just, I think, a great look at this point. So not to self-promote, but yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please tell your friends about the show if they like Mr. Robot, and if they don't like Mr. Robot, tell them to start watching Mr. Robot, because it's an amazing show. There's still time to catch up. We're only 11 episodes in. These go up every week, hopefully every Saturday. So YouTube hasn't given me some fits with uploading lately, so sometimes it uploads overnight. Sometimes it takes like literally all day. I think it took me 12 hours to upload a video the other day, like a 45-minute video. So I don't know. It depends on the connection, but we're aiming for every Saturday. The review schedule might be a little jumbled. But yeah, thank you so much. And I love all the support, and the views have been great. And I've had such a great time doing this, and I'm so excited to see the other episodes going forward. And I really can't believe how quickly this time is going. It feels like I do one episode and the next night I gotta do another, even though I'm waiting about a week between each one. So anyway, I'm rambling again. That's kind of the MO here, but maybe I'm descending into madness, who knows. But until next time, goodbye, friend.